Now, I will say development's not linear, and it's not the same for one player to the next. So that part of it is a little bit of a mystery that no one can really project, and that's on Avery, how hard he works. And I think from everything we know about him, we know he's going to work as hard as possible to continue to improve.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into another edition of Three Ma. I am John Kurtz, joined by Derek Young and Cole Manbeck. Today, we preview K-State and Oklahoma State. Is this a Big 12 championship game, elimination game already in late September? It feels like it very, very much could be. When you're listening to this, depending on when, you probably still have some time to go out and make sure your tailgate has everything that you need this Saturday. Of course, that would be from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Get your Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon or 360 vodka or both and satisfy everybody at the tailgate. But the bourbon is incredible. Rave reviews all around. Go try it out if you have not. Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon from our friends at Holiday Distillery, who are great cats, K-State fans who support the show here. Okay, we are back, all three together. DY has returned from Utah. We're both back now from Utah and ready to roll. Are you, moving into headline number one here for me, DY, are you feeling better or worse about things than I last saw you when we were in the immediate aftermath of 38-9?
Probably better, but it's just how these things go, right? That you kind of justify or qualify the loss in a certain way to make yourself feel better. I think that's just a natural thing. So I probably do feel better. And I'm not even sure this is an elimination playoff game, to be quite honest, because from what I've seen from Oklahoma State, I think they're going to have more than 2 league losses. I hope not, but K-State is capable to have more than 2 league losses. And I'm not sure that there's another team that'll have 2 or less besides Utah. So I think that second place could be a 3-way or could be a tie with 3 lost teams, to be quite honest at this point. I think that's very possible. But I do feel better because you go back and rewatch. I think I feel better because I was worried that this might be turning into an offensive coordinator thing when it comes to the offense. And rewatching a game, I think I rewatched it 6 or 7 times. I guess I like to torture myself, but the offensive coordinator was the least of the issues, to be quite honest. So I felt better in that way. I felt better in knowing that you're never going to have a Kansas State game this season where you give up 4 touchdowns as easy as they did against BYU, when they have 2 short fields of less than 30 yards and then 2 non-offensive touchdowns. That's sometimes how Kansas State wins games. That's not how Kansas State loses games under Kleiman. I think that was very much a fluke and not necessarily a trend. So I just think that the way they lost this game is a lot of it is due to youth and inexperience on the road, first time in that kind of atmosphere. So I do wonder about maybe some of the road games in the future now. But in general, that's just not a replicable formula the way they lost, because I don't think they lose that way. They don't play that way again.
I think the only
Cole, you had the opportunity to break down some of what happened with Curry, on the point that Derek makes about the offensive coordinator and where some of the real blame lies. I mean, I'm the same way. I listened to some of Curry's breakdown of all of that, and it made me feel, honestly, yes, I would say a little bit better, because you're like, hey, I mean, players are going to have to be better, obviously, so that part isn't great, but like Avery needs to develop. I feel like it's one of the key points here.
Yeah, so we had the all-22 and took around 5 plays from the game offensively and highlighted them and had Curry break them down. So if you watch on YouTube or listen on the audio platforms, you might want to take a look at YouTube as well, because we play those clips and have Curry completely analyze the route trees, the offensive line, the defensive coverage, the defense that the opponent is in, that BYU is in, what the coverage scheme is, the route combinations, where the first read should be, the formations, etc. Curry goes into tremendous detail, and you'll enjoy watching that on YouTube. It's something different that we pulled out this week to try and give a look and give the all-22 look of the entirety of the field, which you don't pick up on the TV broadcast. So yeah, like you could see some things when you watch that you wouldn't see on the typical TV broadcast on ESPN, where there were guys open. I mean, look, I was a pretty big critic of Connor Riley after the BYU game, and I'm not going to go as far as DY to say that offensive coordinator wasn't the least of K-State's concerns. I mean, I still had some frustrations, especially with the final sequencing of the half.
I think that's much Lyman, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's back-to-back weeks where you have weird sequence. I mean, honestly, 3 straight weeks when you have poor clock management sequencing. I mean, you can talk about the Tulane game when they had 6 seconds left and they had a chance to run another play to get in field goal range, but they burned a timeout before that when they didn't need to. I mean, it's very frustrating into the first halves that we've seen.
I think that's more an approach, philosophical, strategic thing. It's something that Kleiman will never be good at, quite honestly. So I guess I just gloss over those things because it doesn't come across to me as an offensive coordinator issue. It's more of an head coach issue and what you want to do there from a philosophical standpoint. I think the offensive coordinator has to execute what the coach wants to, basically in those situations, and why I really steer clear from the offensive coordinator part of it, because, you know, if Avery Johnson just gets to a second read in a clean pocket, it's a touchdown to Will Swanson on this on one of those field goal drives. The other one, I think they had a touchdown called back because of an offensive line penalty. So, and if it's 14-0, like that game's and I know people are going to like roll their eyes. That game is probably over because at 14-0, Kansas State's going to run the crap out of the ball and BYU never stopped the run.
It's absolutely over. I mean, I know BYU fans probably are really annoyed with me talking about, like, on the post-game show that we did. I saw it's been flooded with comments from BYU fans, and I don't blame them for being frustrated that I'm kind of glossing over and calling it more fluky than anything, and that K-State was dominating, especially early in that game, because you're right. BYU, if K-State punches those 2 drives in for touchdowns and gets up 14-0, the K-State defense pens their ears back. BYU becomes one-dimensional. They already struggle to run the football. That's when you get Retzloff in turnover-prone situations, right, which is something he's very accustomed to, is giving the ball away. And the fact that K-State was wearing down that BYU defense and dominating the ground game, you get up 14-0, you can stick to your game plan the entirety of the game and just run the shit out of the football. And so it absolutely was the biggest difference in the game, not capitalizing in the red zone, which last year's team was number 2 in the country in converting red zone trips into touchdown percentage. This year, they're, I think, around 90th in the country at doing that. So they got to be better there. But yeah, to the point that John had brought up full circle, the film study that we did with Curry, like you just said, DY, there were guys open a couple different times. That should have been a touchdown to Will Swanson, wide open in the end zone. Avery locked onto his first read, which Curry said was the right read to make initially. But then he panicked and ran out of the pocket and never saw his second read, and Will Swanson open in the middle of the end zone for a touchdown, which to me also speaks that maybe Avery doesn't fully trust his offensive line yet as well, that he's evading the pocket that early, which
I don't know if that's that. I think young quarterbacks always, that's a trait.
They do, but I see Patrick Mahomes do it too. Like when
I know, but he's also unorthodox and not necessarily a conventional quarterback to follow to the T.
I wouldn't blame him if he didn't trust his offensive line because the pass protection was horrendous.
According to the pressure stat, it really wasn't, and I think that's because Avery got blamed for a lot of those pressures.
Wow. I mean, I feel like a couple of the mistakes could be attributed. So both interceptions occurred where K-State didn't block a guy. Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe I'm looking at key plays where they missed the D end on the screen completely, and then the second one. I mean, yeah, Avery shouldn't have thrown the interception still. He should have took off and run or dumped it off to Giddens in the flat as we see in the all 22. But, you know, they get beat inside right away on a 3rd and 9, and he's on the run immediately. So I guess I shouldn't say that it was horrendous then, but in key situations, some major breakdowns by the offensive line. So you'll see in that film study, though, too, like Curry said, if they run the right route, just, you know, technically, like if they're more technical in their route running, there's probably touchdowns to be had. So really fascinating stuff. And I think the only concern I have BYU, because they should have beat BYU by the way they started, especially. It was fluky. The only concern I have is, and I know this is a young football team, especially on the offensive side of the football, but they couldn't respond to the adversity. They couldn't stop the bleeding. And that's the concern I have. Like when things are going tough, who's going to be the leader?
That's probably going to be the case for a young football team on the road. That's kind of the thing. That's what you have.
Well, to a couple of things. I mean, to stick up for BYU, first of all, like mean, K-State's been pretty sloppy on offense the entire year, but they ran into an environment, obviously, that made it more difficult to work through some of that, but also a defense that's good enough to really make them pay. I mean, it's definitely a better defense than what they saw, for instance, against Arizona the week before. Probably a better defense than Tulane. I mean, I do think Tulane has some nice pieces on that defense as well, but BYU had something to do with it for sure. However, I mean, kind of to the point that you're making, if you look at like Parker, I always forget his last name, Stats Awards graph of like, did we really get beat that bad? K-State looked like they would have won the game going away if you're talking about success rate. You know, that's all about success rate on offense and defense. Now, I saw BYU fans coming in the comments to him or people talking about it and being like, well, the offense didn't really have to try to do much of anything once they had that big lead, so that can, you know, they can kind of just turtle up and that affects some things. Like, okay, I mean, there's context probably needed for all of that. I would also just reference like Josh Pate, who is one of the most popular voices in college football right now. I think he does a really good job. He is pretty objective and analyzing, and very much is all about, you know, power ratings as opposed to rankings, and utilizing like what his model tells him as opposed to like emotion tells him about a game. He picked K-State to lose, thought that it was a spot that K-State was going to have a lot of trouble in. And then he came back after the game and said, look, it's kind of dumb the way the AP poll dropped them. I've still got them at 14th. I still think, look, they're a better team than BYU. They just had a much worse day and a disastrous day. And then he picked K-State to win handily over Oklahoma State. Like, that was literally his first bet of the week was K-State. I think he had it at -5.5 at that point. So just one man's opinion, but that's a pretty well-educated man who picked K-State to lose and very much telegraphed what was going to happen on Saturday in Provo, and he still has K-State in the same spot as a better team than BYU and as a much better team than Oklahoma State. He does not think much of the Cowboys, does not think that they should be ranked.
If he got it at 5.5, he should have waited. It's not as high anymore. It's like 4.5.
I think he figured it was going the other way.
Yeah, it went down to 4.5.
Maybe he is. Maybe he's looking at Chris Kleiman after a loss, guys. In which over the last two seasons, since the start of 2022, Chris Kleiman is 7-0 following a loss with an average margin of victory of 22 points per game.
It's pretty good. They have not lost back-to-back games very often, which obviously is a good sign here. I know we've talked about the offense, but how far, with headline number 2 here, how far does the offense actually have to go? Like, we've diagnosed some of the issues here. Obviously, you have a quarterback that needs to get better at working through progressions, just being more comfortable. Offensive line has had some breakdowns. Receivers haven't always been super consistent. So, like, how far away is this? Is this something that we expect to start to click soon? Do they have to make major changes in terms of the way they're trying to run the offense because of these issues? Like, what do you think, DY?
It's not as far as it seems. Now, I will say development's not linear, and it's not the same for one player to the next. So that part of it is a little bit of a mystery that no one can really project, and that's on Avery, how hard he works. And I think from everything we know about him, we know he's going to work as hard as possible to continue to improve. And he is getting better. Everything's a little bit exacerbated and sped up on the road, too. So he was put in the worst setting possible for where he's at in his development. At home, where all the external factors and internal factors are in a controlled environment that he is comfortable with, things do go slower for him. That's why young players are so much better at home in those controlled environments. So he's going to be better just for that. He's got to be better when things are off script, off schedule, in a uncontrolled environment. So I really only worry about Avery to that extent on the road games the rest of the way, because that's when those challenges get exacerbated. And the reason why I don't think they're that far away is because, yes, if you want to get real detailed, you can pick out multiple problems, but there's only like one factor each time that they're missing a touchdown. An offensive line penalty calls back a touchdown. Avery waits a tick longer and his second read opens up. That's a touchdown. The right side of the offensive line holds up a tick longer. Avery is a wide open touchdown to Keegan Johnson on a post route as well. So there's all these things that we're talking about, but but only one of them goes wrong to really sink a play. So more than anything, they all need to be more consistent across the board because they've all proven that they can do it from time to time, but they're not doing it every play or doing it on a 90% of the plays. That's where they need to get to is a consistency standpoint. And then you make it easier on your offensive coordinator, who's in his first year, mind you, and he's probably having a hard time with the trust factor of who can deliver for him on a consistent basis.
I mean, Avery's a smart kid. He's going to learn from these things as he goes through the season. And to me, it's just a matter of a young quarterback needing to see the field better, which is often something that victimizes young QBs. And we forget he's 19 and, he's in this will be his sixth start this weekend at quarterback for Kansas State. So he'll continue to see things that he might have missed and see the field better, read the field better, the defenses as well. I do have to say, guys, there's been some commentary about, Oklahoma running off Gabriel for Jackson Arnold and K-State running off Avery Johnson or Will Howard for Avery Johnson. And the commentary, I think, is a little rushed to judgment right now. It's almost like people forget while Avery struggled at BYU, do people not remember that Will Howard gave the game to Oklahoma State last year as a fourth-year quarterback on the road when he threw 3 interceptions? Do people not remember that Will Howard, and I'm sorry to throw strays here at Will Howard, but the guy had
Will Howard, man.
Will Howard had 10 interceptions last year. He should have had 15 to 20. How many drop picks did he have? And that's a veteran quarterback, going on the road and struggling in situations. So let's give Avery Johnson a little slack here when it comes to, some of the mistakes. He'll get better from it.
And even that commentary, I thought they were saying that Oklahoma and Kansas State were different because even if, and I don't know that it's true, and to be honest, it probably looks similar, but Will Howard versus Avery Johnson in the same situation, it's not necessarily about the now, too. It's about the future at the same time. And I don't think you can keep asking Avery Johnson to wait. I think that was also part of the...
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, if we're talking about people get very silly with that discussion because obviously, I mean, Kate, someone said that in our group chat, did they, I guess we'll see if they made the right choice or something. I was like, no. No, they made the right choice. Regardless of what happens with Avery Johnson's career, he could play like this the rest of his career. They made the right choice. That's the choice that you have to make. You can't, in 2024 college football, unless you are Texas and you can stash Arch Manning on the bench, you got to make that choice, man. Not only can you not, is it tougher to pay 2 quarterbacks like that, but a guy's not going to sit. So you would have lost him. So you have to play for the future there as opposed to, especially because we talked about the developmental cycle of this team. It all looks like next year would be the year where they have this young talent that's kind of crescendoing after they get the experience this year. So you couldn't say, well, hey, we'll take one more year of the more experienced, more ready to go right now quarterback because your big year looks like next year. And then you could have been sitting there like, oh, well, you could be like Auburn or something with a lot of talent, but no quarterback and just a mess. You needed to have everything building toward next year and the future. So anyway, yes, that is not a discussion I think anybody should really be engaging in. It's pretty silly.
I think the better question is, guys, what's the identity of this football team? I mean, does this need to be a run-oriented team, considering they ran for over 200 yards in each of the first 4 games this year? They're averaging 6.5 yards per carry, guys. That would be a school record for Kansas State football. They've never rushed for more than 6 yards a carry in any season. Obviously, there's a long ways to go, but the way they're running the ball right now, when you look at success rate, when you look at line yards, they're number 7 nationally in line yards. So the offensive line is blocking tremendously well in the running game, especially. I mean, should this be a team that's just going to have to be run heavy, which we didn't want to have to go to? But, I mean, is that what the identity needs to be to win right now?
Yeah, but, I mean, if they're going over 200 yards in all 4 games, I think they're doing that for the most part, and they've gotten away with it when they had to. The game script, you're down 31-6.
Well, yeah, I'm not questioning. I'm saying, moving ahead, do they
I guess I think that's what they kind of been. If you run for over 200 yards all 4 games, I think you've kind of been doing that. If you go too much, then I think you do ruin the future maybe a little bit.
I think
because you're the one that talked about Avery Johnson needing reps. If you just ask him to hand it off and run every time, he's not really getting those reps.
Well, that's what I worry about. I mean, that's the balancing act, right?
It doesn't want to stick around in offense and runs 40, 50 times a game.
No, that's what I worry about. You got to balance the developmental process for Avery. You got to, also, want to keep guys happy as well in that regard. But at the same time, I think they're like 48th, 50th in rushing percentage. So it's not like, they're top 5 in running the ball in terms of the percentage of plays. They've been relatively balanced in terms of handoffs versus pass. Obviously, they couldn't against BYU when things fell apart, but
yeah,
look, I would rather be balanced. I mean, I don't want to have to be a run heavy team. I want to see K-State football be a modern day offense where they can stretch the field and they can throw the football.
I think they're balanced right now. I have no problem with the ratio at this point, personally.
Yeah. The biggest problem is the explosiveness. I mean, Chris Kleiman said they wanted to be more explosive, and they're 112th in explosive plays overall offensively right now, number 14 in the Big 12. Last year, they were 105th nationally in explosive plays, so they're actually worse in explosiveness. Passing explosiveness, they're 123rd nationally. Last year, they were number 84. So they got to get more big plays.
The rushing explosiveness is starting to come on in the last two games, it felt like to me anyway. The passing explosiveness is really what's sinking that number because you're just missing on a lot of deep balls.
Yeah, I got to hit something down the field. I mean, there's just no threat of anything down the field.
No one's honoring that because the ball's usually off the mark, a receiver drops it, or it's just not on the same page. There's no threat of a deep ball.
Imagine what the rushing explosiveness would be if you gave a guy averaging 8.5 yards per carry more than 6 touches a game. Man, it'd even take off even more.
A reference to Dylan Edwards, obviously. I mean, the other thing would be if you can start to hit a couple of deep balls, how much does that help? I mean, not just rushing explosiveness, but just being able to run the ball even more. They're already running it pretty well, but could soften things up a bit for them. Would be potentially very, very huge. It is huge if you get to homefieldapparel.com and use promo code 3MON24, get 15% off your first order. Our friends at Homefield Apparel have the best college gear around. Make sure you go check out homefieldapparel.com. They've got 50-plus K-State designs. They've got 100-plus other teams, like I believe Derek is wearing. Is that a Wreckham?
Yeah.
Texas Tech shirt?
We're back, baby.
Okay, that might be a little bit of foreshadowing to our picks later on, a segment that I am very much not looking forward to. But if you want to be like DY and rep the Texas Tech Red Raiders, you can do that as well. Promo code 3MON24, homefieldapparel.com, and we're back in just a moment.
Looking for tickets for your next event? Tickets for Less is your number one source. Save big on every purchase when you use promo code KCSN at ticketsforless.com. The best part of finding something new is sharing it with your friends. That's exactly what it feels like when you discover that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless service for just $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. It's such an awesome deal, there's no way you can keep it to yourself. So friends, don't let friends overpay for wireless. And you can say bye-bye to your overpriced wireless plans and switch to Mint Mobile. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you and your friends with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. And if you're worried about bringing over your old phone or your phone number and personal contacts, you can transfer all of that when switching to Mint Mobile. So ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/3maw. That's mintmobile.com/3maw. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/3maw. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
I continue to forget about our great friends at Mint Mobile who bring you the KCSN hotline. So please, this is a call if you would like to contact us to weigh in. 913-407-6524. That's 913-407-6524. To hit us up on the KCSN hotline powered by Mint Mobile. Send your questions or comments to us. Whatever it is, let us know what you're thinking about the offense, Avery Johnson, etc. Do you think things need to change? Let us know. You can also talk to us at patreon.com/3maw. If you sign up there, you can be a part of our Discord community, which, as always, is very lively during the season. So that is a great way to do it as well. Plenty of ways to get in contact with us. All right, so headline number 3, as we kind of move past what happened and start looking toward this game. This is going to be brought to you by our friends at Alinco. top storyline to me of the week, especially as you start to zero in on this game. It's just that this is a massive game for both teams in the Big 12 title race. DY, I know, thinks maybe not fair to call it an elimination game, but either way, if one of these two teams that was picked top 3 in the Big 12 preseason poll is going to be 0-2 in the Big 12. That's not the way anybody wanted to start their season, not the way either team anticipated it. So there should be and I don't mean this in like a bad way necessarily, but like an aura of desperation around both teams here. Not like desperate because they have to be desperate and the season's been so bad, but like you need this win. You need this win to keep pace in a Big 12 title race that's looking very crowded right now.
There definitely should be a level of urgency. Falling 0-2 is nowhere where anyone wants to be. So I understand that viewpoint of it. I just think, especially Oklahoma State, I think they've looked worse for most of the year than Kansas State. Even the games where you look on the surface, knocking South Dakota State around by multiple scores, you would look at those games blindly and think, man, Oklahoma State's doing pretty well this year, but you dig into the numbers, and I just don't like the formula that has worked for them. Like, they're not playing defense and they're not running the ball. And as I think I said on here, maybe a week ago, maybe a couple weeks ago, relying on the quarterback, whether it be Alan Bowman or someone else, just isn't sustainable because they're not good enough. And we saw why last week.
Yeah, obviously it's a monster game. It's a must-win game. K-State's at home. You got to win this game. You cannot afford to drop to 0-2 in the league. Your league title chances of getting to the Big 12 championship would probably be at 3-4% if you go 0-2 to start league play. Look, in 2019 and 2021, K-State went undefeated in the non-con, and then they dropped multiple games to open up league play. That can't happen this year. They have to win this game against Oklahoma State. They get the tiebreaker over them, though who the hell knows how Brett Yormark's tiebreakers are actually going to work. But it would be huge to just kind of bury Oklahoma State here because Oklahoma State's schedule does lighten up as well after they get through this game. And Kansas State then has the bye week. You got Colorado, West Virginia, both very winnable road games where you could then talk about this team being 6-1. And don't forget, guys, I think we all had K-State, and I think, John, you might add them at 5-2 because I think we all three had them losing at West Virginia, and you correctly had them losing at BYU. But as I think about that, in the preseason pod preview we did, DY and I both had them at 6-1, losing to West Virginia. Well, if you can go beat Oklahoma State and then win these next 2 road games, which won't be easy, but they are much more winnable than I maybe had thought, especially at West Virginia, and you sit at 6-1 after 7 games, you're right where I thought they would be. They just lost a game that I thought differently. I thought they would win at BYU and lose at West Virginia. So an opportunity to reset the table right here, win this game, go into the bye week, get better, get fresh mentally and physically, and start the march toward the Big 12 championship. So, yeah, it's a huge game. And Oklahoma State, to DY's point, I mean, you talk about Arkansas. They should have lost to Arkansas. Now, I think it's also important to remember that when Oklahoma State was all down in the dumps last year, K-State went to Stillwater, and that's when they beat K-State, obviously, 29-21. Right. Everybody was like, oh, Oklahoma State, Gundy. Now they're coming off a loss again here to Utah when they couldn't have looked worse against a freshman quarterback and just got dominated, even though the score looked better than it really was. How do they respond?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question. Like, is Oklahoma State's a veteran team? Look at that roster. There's a lot of veterans on that team. I know I make fun of them and say they're fraudulent, but there's a lot of upperclassmen. How are they going to respond to the adversity here coming into Kansas State?
Yeah, I mean, this is an opportunity for them to fix their season a la last year, although last year they were probably in more dire straits than this. So this is probably not even close to the same desperation zone for them. And just look at the Kansas State schedule. We thought it was a pretty navigable schedule before the year. It's probably even easier now looking back. Like, Arizona's not as good as we think. West Virginia's not as good as we thought. Kansas is not as good as we thought. Like, that schedule that was kind of light is even lighter.
Yeah, but the point I would make on the other side of that, too, about the Big 12 race, and maybe we just see this a little bit differently, DY, based on what you said earlier, but like Utah, they have that win in the toughest environment on paper outside of their own to go win at, and they did it with a true freshman quarterback, and now they've really got a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. So does Iowa State. You know, I mean, Iowa State ends the year with Utah and K-State back-to-back, but everything up until then, I do think they have UCF mixed in there, I believe. We'll see what UCF actually is, but those are two teams that appear to be, like, right now, a snapshot in time, in the driver's seat, and they've got very manageable schedules.
I think UCF and Iowa State are definitely in the driver's seat considering where they position themselves, but at the same time, I don't think they're like Utah, where they're going to be immune from losing a couple games.
Okay, there we go. UCF is at Iowa State. That's why I thought it was at Ames. It's on October 19th. So, be an interesting game.
Interesting weekend. Same weekend K-State goes to West Virginia.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know. After the heroics that Colorado pulled off on Saturday, I'm surprised that Cole is labeling that as a easy road win still for K-State.
I view that game the same as it was before the year. I don't think anything super tangible has changed.
Very impressed by Baylor's Hail Mary defense, which the laughable thing about that is, guys, as you probably saw in the highlights, they should have given up back-to-back Hail Mary touchdowns.
Yeah, they gave up back-to-back.
I thought Dave Aranda knew how to coach defense. Isn't that his MO? I mean, come on, really?
He took back defensive play calling duties for that one. For this season, he did anyway. And that call on the last play was called Victory Cigar, by the way. He pointed out in post-game press conference.
Why would you admit that?
I probably wouldn't have said that.
Yeah. Well, look, if Dave needs a little pick-me-up, he can win $500. But so can you. All right? Don't let Dave Aranda be the one to win it. If you want an extra $500, go to BlueWirePods.com/survey and complete the Blue Wire audience survey about you and your podcast listening habits for a chance to win a $500 gift card. The survey will help create a better advertising experience for audiences and in turn help this show. That's BlueWirePods.com/survey, where all you have to do is answer some simple questions for a chance to win $500. Make sure to read the full terms and disclaimer, plus complete the survey for a chance to win. BlueWirePods.com/survey. The link is also in the show notes of this episode. And, of course, that top storyline was brought to you by Alinco, local-based company out of KC, owned by K-Staters. They've got you covered for all your home improvement needs. Locally owned since 1986, in an industry where many have been bought out by national companies. So you want to deal with local people, you want to deal with K-State fans for your home improvement needs, Alinco is the place to do that. If you need new windows or a bathroom remodel, they have premium window replacements, Kohler Luxstone shower systems. They can do new siding on your home. And you don't have to be in just Kansas City or Manhattan. Western Missouri, Northeast Kansas, the entire KC Metro, they will come to you. Go to alencohome.com. That's ALENCO home.com, ALENCO home.com to check out their services, including free estimates. And you can call Sam at 913-961-2165. Cole, I anticipated this would be the part of the show where you tell me just how impressive Mike Gundy is as head coach, everything that he's done, Hall of Fame coaching career. Start building up his accolades before you tell us about the rest of the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to take too many shots right now. I would probably be in a better position to do that at Kansas State, one at BYU, but I'll wait to see what the outcome of Saturday's game is in Manhattan. Look, Oklahoma State comes into this game, they're 25th in the SP+. Overall, K-State's 22nd. If you look at the F+, it's very similar numbers. The SP+ projects K-State to win this game 30-27 with a 57% chance to win. Brian Fremo's game projections have K-State by 4.4 points with a projected outcome of 29.7 to 25.3 and gives K-State a 62% win probability in this ball game. One thing of note, guys, that I didn't flag earlier, I meant to reference, thing that's different about this K-State football team, I was going through Brian Fremo's metrics last night. K-State is 124th out of 134 FBS teams and net starting field position and 15th in the Big 12. Last season, K-State was number 35 in net starting field position. K-State's offense is dead last in college football, 134 out of 134 in offensive starting field position. And then we know the defense has been placed in tough spots as well with short fields, especially at BYU. So that's another thing that can't go under the radar. K-State has to do better in getting set up in better field position, whether it be special teams or forcing turnovers, and we'll talk about turnovers in a minute as well. Oklahoma State comes in this game, in their last 12 road games, or last 12 games away from home, including neutral site games, they're 4-8 against Power 4 teams, and their wins, guys, Arizona State in 2023 on the road, at Houston and at West Virginia, two of the worst Big 12 teams at their word, and then obviously their bowl win against Texas A&M last year. So they have struggled away from home. Let's start with the Oklahoma State offense, which this is, I think you guys would agree, probably the biggest shock heading into this season. They have the worst rushing success rate out of all Power 4 teams in college football through 4 weeks at just over 30%. Ollie Gordon, the Big 12 Offensive Preseason Player of the Year, who ran for over 1,700 yards last year and had over 100 yards in 9 of his last 11 games, averaged 6.1 yards per carry last year on 285 rushing attempts. He's sitting here today with 73 carries for 258 yards and just 3.5 yards per carry. His longest run is 22 yards this season. He had 126 yards on 28 carries in the season opener against FCS opponent South Dakota State. Since then, hasn't run for more than 49 yards in a game and is combined to rush for 132 yards on 45 carries over that time frame, an average of 2.9 yards per rush. Oklahoma State is a team averaging 3.3 yards per carry on the season on 115 rushing attempts. Longest run is 23 yards on the ground. They've only gained 385 rushing yards on the season. Last year, they were nearly 5 yards per carry. And I think the biggest shock that they got 5 redshirt senior offensive linemen, including 2 preseason All-Big 12 first-team selections. Yeah, they haven't been able to move guys off the line. If you look at line yards and stuff rate, et cetera, they're 75th in the country in stuff percentage, which measures the percentage of plays stopped at or behind the line of scrimmage, and they're 102nd in line yards, which measures the number of rushing yards attributed to the offensive line. Now, they've only allowed 1 sack this season, which ranks number 6 nationally, but they're not moving guys off the ball. And Ollie Gordon doesn't look anywhere near as dynamic as he did last year. I mentioned rushing success rate. They're 121st nationally in that category. So been a huge struggle. Rushing explosiveness, 107th in the country. Last year, they were number 14. Perhaps we should have saw this coming, guys, because last year they were number 14 in rushing explosiveness, but they were number 88 in rushing success rate. They weren't consistently a good running team last year. They relied on a lot of explosive plays, and it seems to be the story this year, except they're not getting the explosive plays as they're 107th in the country. Look, we know K-State's been really good against the run so far this year. How good are they going to be against the pass? Because K-State's been atrocious at giving up explosive plays in the passing game, and Alan Bowman has a trio of wide receivers that are terrific, starting with Dejon Stribling, a guy who transferred from Washington State, missed most of last season, but he's got 20 receptions for 345 yards this season, an average of 17.3 per catch. Brennan Presley, we all know about, preseason All-Big 12 first team, 5'8" wide receiver, senior, had 29 receptions for 219 yards to start this season. He's a guy with 252 career receptions for nearly 3,000 yards. And then you look at Rashad Owens, a guy that's a 6'2", 230-pound senior receiver with 14 receptions for 230 so far this season. Guys, if you combine their top 3 wide receivers on the season, they've combined for 483 career receptions for nearly 6,000 yards. So a dynamic trio of receivers that Alan Bowman has to work with, though Bowman really struggled, obviously, against Utah. I would ask you guys this, what do you think the impact is, and maybe D.Y. I'll start with you, of the Utah game. So first of all, playing Utah, and then that Oklahoma State defense being on the field in a field temperature that was, 130, 140 degrees down on the field level, and being on the field for 42-plus minutes and 81 plays in that game and playing a physical team like Utah. Is there anything to be made of that, or is it college kids and they'll recover?
They'll probably recover from the old temperature thing. I don't think that's as much to do as playing just probably one of the 3 or 4 most physical teams in college football the week before. I think that's more impactful. Utah beats teams up and on both sides of the ball. They're physical. No one is more physical than them. Kansas State, Oklahoma State think they're physical until they play Utah and they realize that physical. Yeah. So that's just different. Their brand of football is different. They beat you up. I think that's what has the bigger impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't help Oklahoma State. I don't know that it's going to be something that's massively impactful, especially when I'm sure they realize just how important this game is in the context of their season. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to magically run the ball all of a sudden, because they've been just terrible.
And I think the far more glaring issue for Oklahoma State is the way the season has unfolded. They've had to rely on the quarterback being special, and they don't have a special quarterback.
Well, their rushing percentage of plays, they're only running the ball in 38.5% of their rushing plays, and
I think they realized it wasn't getting it done.
Yeah.
And the looks that they're getting from defenses.
Yeah. I mean, Mike Gundy was questioned about the lack of rushing attempts against Utah. They ran the ball only 15 times, but they weren't getting anything. So they abandoned that. Now, you could really question the decision, I know I did, about benching Alan Bowman after one bad half of football because I didn't think they had a chance once they did that.
But probably didn't have a chance with either one, but Bowman gives you maybe that sliver of hope.
Yeah. They had 3 points against Utah until scoring a touchdown with 5:37 remaining in the game. 127 of Oklahoma State's 285 yards of offense came in the final two drives or 10 plays of the game. So 45% of their total yards achieved came in the final 7 minutes of game action. They had 158 yards of offense on their first 49 plays, an average of 3.2 yards per play. And look, this Oklahoma State offense, they averaged 7.6 yards per play against Tulsa, 550-plus yards in that game. The other 3 games, they're averaging just 5.2 yards per play thus far this season.
Everyone did their homework on Oklahoma State in the offseason because everyone came back this year with a blueprint that was far more effective than last year. You figure out a scheme or whatever defensively to take away Ollie Gordon, and you force their quarterbacks to beat you because they can't.
Well, if you're talking about defenses getting tired and fatigued, Cole, they had 7 3-and-outs against Utah. So, I mean, defense was just on the field. It wasn't just that they were struggling, like they weren't even picking up first downs. It was that defense had to be on the field a long time.
And I'll let Cole get to the Oklahoma State defense, but I do have a fun fact about this series after he's done.
Okay. And points per drive, this is the last thing on their offense. Points per drive, 2.29 this year, number 64 nationally. Guys, they're pretty much right in line with what they were last year. Casey Dunn, they've been really frustrated with their offensive coordinator. They were 2.9 points per drive this year. They were 2.24 last year, number 59 nationally. I mean, they're pretty much the same. It's just they were more explosive last year. That seems to be the only difference with this offense. They're really struggling. DY, go ahead and give me your fun fact real quick.
Oh, the fun fact: the home team in this series, the home team, is 9-3 in the last 12 meetings. So this is a game that's maybe not surprising, dominated by the home team. The average margin of victory in those 9 wins, 17 points. Like these teams blow the crap out of each other at home for some reason. And in those 9 games, even though the margin of victory is 17 points, there was a 2-point victory and a 4-point victory. So the other 7 were even more demonstrative.
By the way, DY, I do need to correct you. As we all know, according to Cole, 2020 does not exist in the record books. It didn't happen. So that actually would be 9-2.
9-2.
9-3, 9-2, because
the margin of victory would go up even more at that point.
We don't recognize any COVID year accomplishments.
And I was at that 2020 game, but I jumped in the teleportal and wasn't actually there in my mind. So
there's 5 double-digit wins in those 9 games. Like these teams kind of don't play a lot of close games.
See, I thought from thinking in my head that a lot of the games felt really close in Stillwater over the years in Manhattan. So obviously doesn't seem to be the case.
Not in the Chris Kleiman era.
Oh.
Yeah. All right.
We beat them by 48 the last time.
Yeah. All right. The Oklahoma State defense, points per drive allowed, 29th in the country at 1.47 points per drive. That's much better than they were last year, where they were 2.21 points per drive, ranking 63rd in the country. They're 37th defensively in the F-plus rankings of Brian Freemouse. Now, they lost to all Big 12 preseason first-team Big 12 linebacker Colin Oliver to a season-ending injury in the Arkansas game. So that's a big deal. Now, Nick Martin, also a preseason All-Big 12 first-team linebacker that got him, but losing Colin Oliver certainly hurt them. This is the story that's fascinating about Oklahoma State, guys, is they're consistent at least. Explosive plays allowed last year, 129th in the country out of 134 FBS teams. This year, they're 128th in defensive explosiveness. So give up a ton of explosives. Now, the question will be, K-State obviously is one of the least explosive teams in college football right now. They're 112th in the country offensive explosiveness. So you've got a terrible defense against explosives against an offense that has lacked explosives so far. That is a matchup to watch. Oklahoma State defense, 71st in stuff rate, 78th in line yards, points per opportunity. They're number 6 and best in the Big 12. Havoc rate, number 29 in the country. Rushing explosiveness allowed, 110th in the nation. Last year, they were 124th in rushing explosiveness. K-State is a good rushing explosive team. That might be an area where they can get Oklahoma State. Passing explosiveness allowed, 117th this year, 133rd last year in passing explosives. Utah ran for 249 yards on the ground on 52 carries, an average of 4.8 yards per rush, allowed 456 yards total, 17-29 passing for 207. OSU defense, as I mentioned, was on the field for 81 plays. we got to remember, guys, that Arkansas came into Stillwater and had 648 yards of offense on 93 plays and averaged 7 yards per play, including 416 yards passing and 232 yards on the ground, 5 yards per carry. One thing about this Oklahoma State defense, they're opportunistic. They have forced 8 turnovers this season, including 3 versus Arkansas and 3 versus Utah. So K-State will have to take care of the football. They are number 8 in the country, or top 10 in the country, in 2.3 takeaways per game. Last year, they were 27th nationally at 1.7 turnovers forced per game. That'll be a big part of it. And guys, the only other thing I'll mention, so I already mentioned K-State's starting field position. This K-State offense, points per drive, 2.31 points per drive, 61st in the country. That is so far the worst in the Chris Kleiman era when it comes to efficiency. But also I want to mention the turnover thing, because turnovers are such a key component for Kansas State. K-State's defense ranked number 8 nationally last year with 1.9 turnovers forced per game. K-State is -2 in turnover margin right now. That ranks 93rd nationally. They've only forced 3 turnovers, ranking in a tie for number 95 nationally. They're far behind the pace of last year. In 2023, K-State was +11 in turnover margin, ranking in a tie for 5th nationally with 23 turnovers forced to 12 giveaways. The 23 takeaways were 20th nationally. And in 2022, they were +12 in turnover margin, and they had 24 takeaways, which ranked 14th in the country, and they were 8th in turnover margin. K-State has to take care of the football. This is an Oklahoma State defense that will force you into mistakes and some turnovers. As long as you keep them on the field and you just grind it out, I think you can really run the ball on these guys. If you look at them, they are not very good against the run or the pass, really.
Yeah, it's just that the formula this year is not the formula from last year, which is why I'm kind of off that bandwagon. And because John did remind me of Cole's rule that 2020 does not count, Chris Kleiman is 2-0 versus Oklahoma State at home with an average margin of victory of 33.5 points.
Wait. I thought Kleiman only had beat him once.
I was going to say, I think he's only beaten him once.
I was giving him credit for 18. My bad. So,
that's fine.
The 2018 game, that was the hell K-State won that game.
31-12. They just dominated. Yeah.
Well, it was a typical Mike Gundy coaching performance coming. So,
okay. Well, Hall of Fame-esque. I'll make the point on, like, Chris Kleiman at the press conference this week was saying, now, I think some of this was just a shield. It was a question about, like, Avery, and I think he was shielding, trying to put too much of the blame on Avery in the offense or whatever. But he's like, we've got to force turnovers, give our offense short fields. We gave that to BYU last week. And I was looking through, if you go to the College Football Insider's graphs, where they kind of break down all the advanced numbers for the game, you're looking at K-State on the season, 124th in the country in net field position. It's literally like the worst thing that pops up on the entire chart for K-State is field position. So they've got to get better.
Because 2020 doesn't count, I just look back. Mike Gundy's only won in Manhattan once since 2010.
Well, let's keep in mind when it comes to Mike Gundy, they've really only played one true road game against Chris Kleiman in Manhattan because there were 8,000 people in the stands in 2020. Yeah. So Chris Kleiman's had to go to Stillwater in front of packed houses 3 times. Mike Gundy's had to come in once for a true road game.
Against Kleiman. Since 2010, if you eliminate the COVID year, since 2010, the only year Mike Gundy won in Manhattan was 2016.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. We're taking out the COVID year. Yeah. Right.
That's right.
Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. How could I forget? My apologies, everybody. Please forgive me.
So if you take out the COVID year, Oklahoma State's never won in Manhattan since I've started covering the team.
Okay. All right. Well, there's the biggest nugget of all, everybody. Quick hitters, quarter of the way through the season. Who is your K-State MVP? Quarter of the way. Who is the MVP? I know that's a tough thing. It's like, to me, the candidates are like DJ Giddens, Brendan Mott, Austin Romaine.
Yeah, the interior of the defensive line as a collective unit's up there too for me. Maybe Jacob Parrish played pretty well.
Yeah,
okay. DJ Giddens is the answer.
That is a really tough one. Brendan Mott's playing his best football of his career. Romaine's been terrific, which is obviously a key part because K-State doesn't have much behind Romaine, which is huge. But yeah, I think I have to go with DJ. So many big plays that he's made for this football team and kind of carrying and shouldering the load So I'll go with the more sexy appeal of picking the offensive guy, and I think John will probably go different.
They're being carried more so by DJ than the defense. That was why I went that way.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I feel like it's probably DJ. I really do feel like Brendan Mott deserves a lot of acclaim for what he's doing right now, because they've needed that. You know, I mean, we got really excited about Toby after week 1, but pass rush wise, like Brendan Mott's just getting so much done for them right now. So,
yes,
I don't know. Just want to make sure that we highlight him. Speaking of DJ Giddens, give me the higher total here, okay? More total rushing yards on Saturday. Dylan Edwards and Ollie Gordon combined, or DJ Giddens. So
Giddens.
I
think Dylan Edwards gets involved in the passing game more this week, so I think his rushing will be less than his passing. And if Kansas State just kind of duplicates what everyone else has, I just don't think Ollie Gordon will get much on the road. So, and if the game script is the way we kind of think it was, I guess I say I'm just assuming, then maybe, they're not going to be able to run as much as they would like to as well. That's kind of been the problem this year for them. So I think the answer is DJ Giddens.
Well, I'll give Cole the context here. Ollie Gordon's averaging 44 yards per game the last 3 weeks. Dylan Edwards is at 45 yards per game on the season. So if you did add those up, it would be slightly less than what DJ Giddens is averaging, which is 104 yards per game.
I'll take Dylan Edwards and Ollie Gordon combined over DJ Giddens this week. So, yeah. Hopefully Dylan Edwards touches the ball more than 6 times. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too, man. I don't know. It's probably close, but I think Ollie Gordon, he can't rush for 40 yards every week. Like, at some point he's got to pop for at least like a 60 or 70 yard day. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I'm thinking maybe that comes in a home game. At least I'm hoping so. I think Dylan Edwards has less than 20 rushing yards, but maybe over 40 passing or 40 receiving.
See, DY, I think this is the game, because Oklahoma State 110th or somewhere around there, and rushing explosiveness allowed. This is the game where we see Dylan Edwards have that home run play.
I think it's in the receiving game, because I think they give Avery a few easy throws, and those are to Dylan, and he pops those.
Yeah. Hopefully he can break that 5-yard boundary curl route for a 60-yard touchdown. If those are the route trees they're going to run him on. But
he's been running wheel routes.
I'm aware, but they also have run him on some, boundary curls, hitch routes. So anyways, I'm just making a joke there. Like, I actually think he's going to bust a big play. If it's in the passing game, so be it. But I'll say it'll be Dylan Edwards and Ollie Gordon, because I think Dylan's he's averaging 8.5 yards per carry, but he hasn't had that's what's remarkable about his 21 carries for 179 yards, guys, is he hasn't had that 50-yard run. I mean, he's had his longest run is probably 25 at Tulane, maybe somewhere around there. So I feel like he's due to bust, one of those 40, 50-yard runs.
Yeah, he's just been consistently picking up great yardage. And obviously, as you pointed out earlier this week, he's been about as good as anybody in the country in yards after contact, which you wouldn't think of at his size. All right, K-State seeing Alan Bowman at quarterback this week. They saw Jake Retzloff last week. Cole, we'll start with you. Who would you rather have as your quarterback? Would you rather have Alan Bowman, or would you rather have Jake Retzloff?
I'd take Retzloff, because he's not 38 years old, and he isn't a statue in the pocket and can move a little bit. I think he's got a little bit of a higher ceiling, so I'll take Retzloff.
Same reasons, yeah.
Okay, if we're talking about a 1-year sample size, though, if you feel like the rest of your roster is pretty good, is there an argument for Alan Bowman there?
Isn't that what Oklahoma State's supposed to be this year? I mean,
yeah, and what I will say is, the part of that you kind of, grimace with Retzloff. I mean, Bowman, not necessarily as much this year. He's pretty turnover prone last year. So it's the worst part of Retzloff. Bowman's pretty bad at that too.
I think I got this stat from our guy, Harambe. Did I say that right, guys? Is it Harambe? Oh,
you did.
I got it. All right. Harambe says on our Discord at patreon.com/streamod that Alan Bowman has an 18 touchdown to 17 interception ratio in his career on the road and a 126.4 passer rating. So
right. So the veteran savviness, ball security that you would expect for someone of his age, you don't necessarily get. So I don't know why you would pick him, I guess.
more likely to survive this year. Two guys that have had back-breaking losses in back-to-back weeks. More likely to survive the season. Well, survive into next year. We'll put it this way. More likely to survive this year and be the head coach of their school next year. Neil Brown or Dave Aranda?
Neil Brown.
What's Baylor's schedule? I was trying to pull up.
I think Baylor.
It's more manageable than West Virginia's.
It is, but I think even the post game one, I don't think Baylor's good enough to even beat the teams left. I think they're going to be bad, regardless of the schedule. I also think like Arena coming out and saying that stuff, the way he lost, like I think those comments sink him almost as anything, as almost as much.
See, I don't know. I think that's like media stuff that we did. Like because he said the name of the play and it's kind of embarrassing, it's just going to get him memed. I don't think that's going to get him fired.
No, but it's going to piss off the people that are probably have some say in what happens. They see their school getting embarrassed. Also has to piss off the locker room. So if I would, for me, I'm a player and say screw him, and then I'm out on him, and then we probably don't play as hard the rest of the
I don't know. I feel like we make. I would disagree. I think we make too much of that. Like what the player's mad because he said that the play was called Victory Cigar. Like I don't know. What will screw them is if they just can't win games, which may well happen. But they're a favorite at home against BYU. By the way,
BYU's in. Yeah, I mean they're coming down. Yeah.
I'll say Dave Aranda is more likely to survive. I just looked at the schedule. I think he has a better chance than Neil Brown, though the odds flipped a little bit better with Neil Brown having a miracle comeback last week. Those two play each other later in the year, Neil Brown and Dave Aranda. It might be the winner of that game that survives.
They both have pretty big buyouts, too. It's not going to be cheap for either school to hire either guy.
I think Baylor's pretty willing, though.
I'm kind of in the moment. I'll lean Neil Brown slightly more likely to survive, but it's close, and it's partially because it just feels. I mean, that was rough. That was rough last week for Aranda, but I had similar feelings a week before blowing the pick game for Neil Brown, and that's a rivalry game. Over under, we're talking butts in stands, all right, not tickets sold or anything.
Oh, we're going
butts in stands. Over under 24,500 in the stands at Arrowhead on Saturday.
I'll say I don't. To be honest, I don't really know. I'm going to guess over, just because enough probably bought ahead of time.
I'll go over. I think it'll probably be around 30,000.
Okay, so should I set it? Should I have set it at 29.5?
I don't know. I mean, no, because honestly, it could be under 24.5. I really don't know what to expect. I just know it's not going to look good on ES. They're actually fortunate it's on ESPN Plus because 40,000 empty seats in a gigantic stadium just won't look good. That atmosphere, it's just not going to feel right. They'd be better off playing it in Sporting Park in my mind.
I'd imagine that the fans give them one more game, the first one in Arrowhead. That's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably over. I don't know that it's going to be over by much. We've seen people giving away tickets. And
do you think they win?
Yes, but I've said that for like 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, TCU. That TCU game, I went back and watched a lot of that. Like they gave up 66 points, and you think, oh wow, BYU defense must be really legit. They held SMU without it. SMU's offense did not do very much. They scored 3 non-offensive touchdowns. TCU turned it over a bunch of times. That was like the most undisciplined. You thought K-State was undisciplined and sloppy on Saturday. I mean, unbelievable from TCU. And then Sonny Dykes gets kicked out of the game early in the third quarter too. So, I mean, Mason and his fraud watch, you've got a candidate there.
Yeah, I don't know. What KU's favored by 1.5?
Yeah.
It was 2.5 I saw. No.
I thought I saw 1.5.
I don't know what to make of them, man. I don't know what to make. I mean, UCF should have lost to TCU as well, and then TCU goes and gets smoked by us. I don't know what to make of any of these teams.
Yeah, the computers really like UCF, man. They really like UCF. I'm not sure that I do, but we'll see. I was high on them in the offseason, so they've done a decent job of proving me right. But yeah, they were dead to rights at TCU a couple of weeks ago. Finally, will you be watching St. Bill Snyder's beefy 5-layer burrito live stream on Saturday morning?
No.
No.
Next question.
needs to go away. It's stupid.
Let's get it to DY.
It's so stupid. It needs to stop. So
I just would like to recognize, like, Calm and everybody from the Discord who definitely took my side here of thinking this is still entertaining. It's funny. It's what makes college football great, is the zaniness of all of this stuff. But Cole wants no part of it. So just let the record show I'm the fun guy on the show. I'm
about having fun. I mean, I think I like to have a lot of fun on the show. I think this is really stupid. So, and I would like for it to go away and stop being talked about and appearing on my timeline. So, and John's going to say, I'm the get off my lawn old guy. I'm all about, I like to have a good time. Just not this.
I'm old. I like to have a good time. Cole Manbeck. Put it on a t-shirt, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you're talking to a guy who can stay out until 2 a.m, can have fun, and then I got John dragging me home from 6th Street in Austin at 10 p.m. at night. All right, I'm fun. I could have a good time.
Okay. Lead pipe lock of the week. This is not fun in any way, shape, or form because I am 0-4. So what you should do...
Who'd you pick last week?
What you should do is just take whatever I'm about to say here and
fade it.
The opposite of it, like George Costanza. Do the opposite of it. It was close. I got close. I had Michigan State, BC. I had Boston College covering there, and they won by like 4. I think the line was like 6.5. So Trayshawn Ward couldn't get it done for me. Cole's 1-3. Now he had a worse pick last week because he had NC State against Clemson, and that was embarrassing.
He almost got it at the back end, though.
Yeah, but that was, that
thing was over before the first quarter. It was like already 28 or 35 to nothing. I mean, I thought it was a misread when I saw that. So,
NC State, they seem to have...
I had to on Clemson, and I put real money on Clemson's like under because I figured like the kid Clemson thing from the week before was kind of fool's gold, and Dave Dornan is a good defensive coach. But nope.
Kansas State broke North Carolina State.
Well, yes, as much as I'd like to say it's K-State, it's when you get to the pinnacle of the sport and you play in the Pop-Tarts Bowl and you're that close to eating the Pop-Tart and winning the game and you don't get it, that's tough for any program to recover. And that's clearly what we've seen with NC State. DY is leading the way at 3-1.
The Green Way.
He hit on Tulane, Louisiana last week.
That game turned into a shootout.
I went back and forth on like 3 or 4 different games. So there were a decent amount of plays that I liked.
You should do what you did last year.
I'm landing on Nebraska -10 at Purdue because I think Purdue is awful. I think Nebraska will bounce back a bit. I think Illinois is more legit than I actually thought that they were. And speaking of the College Football Insiders graphs, their model has Nebraska by 31. So, it's quite the disparity. So I was like, all right, well, let's ride. So I'm going with the Cornhuskers.
I would say first, like, real tough road game for Dylan Raiola as a starter, but it's
real tough.
But I was going to say, but it's West Lafayette. So
I hope it goes to overtime because that stat on Nebraska in overtime is hilarious. I will believe they haven't had a first down in 8 overtimes. Not a first down.
It is pretty wild. I was thinking Kurtz should do the what he did last year and lean into the stinky lines and just go in with the Bucks. And I don't think it's tremendously stinky because I get it, but Baylor being favored against BYU is interesting.
I don't know. I'm a little higher on Baylor, I think, than you are. But
I mean, after just because of last week, I would think people would see that and be like, "What the heck?"
Yeah, but you got BYU coming down from
BYU's 4-0,
38-9. We just talked about how there were some fluky elements of that game, and
sure. But
now they've got to go on the road. I think situationally, it makes a lot of sense. Actually,
I would agree. Just to start that way is
fluky elements of both games for both teams, right? I mean, Baylor dominated.
Yes.
Baylor should have won, and then BYU. You could argue if K-State doesn't get away, they'll should have won as well. So, anyways, my lock of the week is Kansas State -4.5. Folks, so I'll give away the prediction and the spoiler alert here. Look, I predicted Kansas State to win this game handily, just like I did last year when Kansas State was going to play TCU, and I said they would win it dominating, and they certainly did, winning 41-3. I pegged this as a game that Kansas State would dominate heading into this season and win going away. I'm gonna modify that a little bit, guys. I might not say that K-State's going to win it by 18 or 21 that I picked, but I take K-State minus 4.5 as my lock of the week. I'm going to hold to my guns here, and I'm going to say that K-State wins this game 34-20.
Okay. I got my lock of the week is the Red Raiders, as you can see by my shirt wearing the Wreckham. I think they're probably back to feeling good about themselves and playing a better brand of football. And I think there's an overreaction on Cincinnati for them to only be a 2.5-point dog on the road in Lubbock. So Texas Tech 2.5.
No love for your home state, huh? Not going to give Cincinnati any?
I could see Texas Tech winning that game by 3 touchdowns, to be quite honest. I mean, the Cincinnati beating Houston by 34-0 does nothing for me.
Guys, I just realized, should I get off that lock of the week? I'm 1-3.
Yeah, I can't believe you did that, but I didn't say anything.
I didn't think about that, guys. John, should I flip that? Should I go somewhere else with that? I don't want to be the guy that jinxes us.
I don't know. You're the fun guy. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, Colorado plus 14. You like that?
No, I'll just stick with K-State. I'll take K-State minus 4.5.
Really?
Okay. The Texas. I mean, yes, it's Cincinnati. Like, I could see them getting blown out, but I am starting to wonder. I mean, Cincinnati was just one choke job away from being 4-0.
Right, but that's not really like a.
Pitt's been decent this year. I don't know.
They haven't beaten anybody.
Tech with Taj Brooks is much different. They went down to
Utah minus 12 is a good bet this week too. By the way, I think it's down to 11 actually. I can't see Arizona sticking with them.
I can't either. But again, when you're talking about like situational stuff, Utah coming off of a huge win, Arizona had a bye week and looked terrible the last time they played. So I couldn't quite pull the trigger on that. I am going to take Cole. What did you say? You said 34-20?
Yeah,
I had it 31-20 written down here for K-State. So, I was going to build suspense and say I've got a mullet on one side and I've got the chain on the other side, but I'll just, guess I just blew through that, so I put on the chain anyway. I will pick K-State to win 31-20.
34-20.
Man, we're all in the same ballpark. No love for the Oklahoma State offense. Only 20 points on the way around for all of us. What is the over-under?
I don't know. The Oklahoma State team total, and I only know this because I put money on it, is 24.5.
I got it, John. The over-under is 55.5.
All right, yeah, so we're like right
there. Yeah, I mean, 34-20 would be 54. So, yeah, we're
34-20
around it. Yeah. Now, I to DY's point, like when I checked yesterday, the line for K-State on the site I was looking at was 5.5. Now it's 4.5. So it is coming down. How does that mean? How much does that mean? I mean, K-State shifted from 6.5 to 7.5 before the kick at BYU, and look what happened. Though you could argue that K-State again.
Even the Sharps.
Yeah, well,
even the Sharps get it wrong 40% of the time.
Well, but I'd also say like they probably were right if K-State, punches in the first 2 drives. Right? You look at the dominating factor.
Yeah, trying to get our comments filled up again.
Oh, I don't think. I don't think BYU. I don't think BYU fans are going to be watching our, Oklahoma State preview. Maybe I underestimate them. I like BYU fans, just like all you guys. They were cool. They seem very nice. I hope I didn't offend them. I'm not trying to.
You just did though.
I had a cougar tail.
I saw Mason's food review.
Yeah, I had one too. Like, it's cool. You got like a thing that's like your thing in your stadium. Like, I'm not gonna like besmirch it, but it in all reality, it is just a donut, a big long donut.
Cole, could you pay BYU another compliment, please, before we leave?
No, I think I don't.
Cole, does BYU beat Baylor?
No, they lose. So
I think so too.
Yeah. I mean, BYU is going to lose that game, but I'll be rooting for BYU much of the season. So does that help, John? Like, I'm not going to be rooting against BYU.
Say that you hope that they beat Utah.
Oh, I absolutely will be. I'll be absolutely rooting for BYU against Utah, and I will say that I love watching BYU games on TV, like basketball and football, because their fans care. It's packed. The atmosphere is great, both men's basketball and football. So
it's also when Cole's drunk at midnight, they give him something to watch.
Exactly. Yeah, they entertain me. They give me a lot of weeknight games. John Kurtz and I watching BYU on road trips and Power Cat game days so many times over the years on like a Friday night before the K-State game the next day. So I like BYU. I like their fans. Their atmosphere is great. They care. They're a good fit for the Big 12 because the people care about, winning. They don't care about a burrito, being stuffed up. So.
Okay, that was good. That was a good shot. I appreciate that one. All right. Okay, well, we're all square. We've made everybody happy. Now we can go. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Everybody who helps support the show, please go support all of our sponsors as well. Thank you to Nick behind the scenes, making everything happen. For Derek and Cole, I'm John. Thanks for listening to another edition of 3 Mile.